to the Journey to Forever podcast, where we discuss the highs and lows of life and love. Join us, your hosts, Flo and
Joe,
for a weekly recalculation of our route as we navigate the twists and turns with candid conversation, comfort food, and laughter. Welcome, Forever family, to season 2 of the Journey to Forever podcast. If you are a new listener, welcome. Remember to subscribe. And if you're a returning listener, thank you for joining us once again. We're happy to have you back. As promised, this season will be filled with date ideas that are pandemic friendly. In this particular episode, we are exploring the dinner and a movie date idea. We're going to review 2 new movies, one of which was just released a few days ago. Oh, and while we're talking about movies, remember to stick around because we have a special surprise for our listeners later on. But before we get into the main feature for today, let's focus on the preview segment known as What's Your Story?
Hi folks, it's Joe again. Nice having you back for this season. So today I have a question for Flo. Flo, got a story to share about being somewhere so remote you lost all sense of civilization?
Yes. That was on our sister isle, Tobago. I won a trip to stay at an eco resort, and I arrived there just around dusk. It was just after 6 p.m. And as I mentioned, it's an eco resort, so everything was to be in tune with nature. There were hardly any lights around. It was dark. And the cabin was surrounded by dense tropical forest. So could you imagine that blackness? And that's your welcome to this experience. It was scary to the point where I almost decided to leave and go to a hotel like within civilization, quote unquote. But I stuck it out because it was a different experience. And I must say it was worth it because when I woke up in the morning and saw the valley with the green trees and heard the birds singing, I was happy that I stayed. So that's great. Okay, Joe, got a story to share about a TV show you were absolutely addicted to?
Oh yeah, for sure. You all remember growing up and just waiting, was it Friday night to see Knight Rider?
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, I never missed an episode of Knight Rider with David Hasselhoff.
Mm-hmm.
Hasselhoff.
Yes.
Yeah, that was it, with Kit.
Mm-hmm.
Finding out what Kit meant, like industries, technology, or something like that. That was one of the most awesome times in my life and childhood. So yeah, that was it. Knight Rider.
Yeah, that Friday night lineup was pretty good because there was MacGyver, I think Sledgehammer, and Hunter at a point in time.
Street Hawk.
Yeah.
Motorbike. There's another one with a helicopter. Can't remember. But as a child growing up, I never missed those series. MacGyver, jump out a plane with a bubble gum and a paper and make a parachute. Well, yeah.
For sure. So, to our local Trini listeners, if you remember those Friday night shows, please feel free to reach out and let's reminisce in the comments at Journey to Forever TT on Instagram. All right. Speaking of TV shows, let's get to the heart of today's episode. These 2 movies. So I'm going to start off with my pick because I guess ladies first. All right, so my choice was a movie called Locked Down. And I think it was very appropriate to what we experienced last year. And I know some countries are going back into lockdown. So it could be interesting to see what other people's experiences was like. This movie was directed by Doug Liman, who also directed The Bourne Identity and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So right away, I was like, okay, sounds interesting. It was written by Stephen Knight, who also did the screenplay for The Girl in the Spider's Web. This movie was released on the 14th of January. Now, to get to the main characters, which honestly was my main pull for this movie because it involves Paxton, who's a van driver who was played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. And you may know him from 12 Years a Slave. And he, in the movie, is married to Linda, who's a jewelry marketer played by Anne Hathaway. We all know Anne Hathaway from lots of movies. And together, they are attempting a high-risk, high-stakes jewelry heist at a department store. Like I said, the man who directed Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Anne Hathaway, the Chiwetel, you tell yourself, this is going to be good. It's a heist movie. We like heist movies, right? The Ocean's trilogy, like, love those, right? Full disclosure, I really had high expectations. Like I said, I like heist movies, and these are two star-talented actors. Joe, here's where you could come in.
Well, it's usually, when the movie began, I was very hopeful. It seemed to be, it could be alright. It started off, I had hopes for it. This is, when I saw this cinematography, I was like, this is not really my kind. But I was going with it, because the camera angles, and I like movies with a bit more, as the technology, the graphics, those are my kind of movies.
Okay.
But I went with it, and I just think that the movie took too long to get around to what the gist of it was. And having so many big name actors who are absolutely brilliant, I must say, in other movies.
Mm-hmm.
This one seemed amateurish.
Okay.
They seemed like movies. That was my whole take on the movie. It took too long to get to the meat and potatoes.
Okay. All right, so let me dissect what you shared, because I share a lot of your sentiments. I would admit that I was intrigued by the opening act, because it was very reminiscent of what we experienced last year in lockdown, where people were working from home. You had to have a lot of Zoom meetings. So that's what you would see. It was like, okay, that's accurate. You got into the fact that a lot of us our relationships were tested because, because if you and your partner were good, the frequency of being around our partner often helped deepen it.
Basically 24 hours.
Right. But if there were cracks in the relationship, being around each other for so often and so long, it just highlighted the cracks. And to me, right. So to me, this couple was one of the latter. They had cracks in the relationship, right? The thing that I appreciated about the opening act as well is the fact that the cinematographer was great at conveying the difference between the conversation that was happening in person, because that was very crisp. You saw the camera very clear and everything. But when they were on a Zoom call or using some form of online video conferencing, it got a little bit fuzzy. So you knew the difference. So I appreciated that attempt in conveying that bit of accuracy. What I really must agree with you on is that it take real long to get to the heart of the matter. It was an hour in, and the action or the build up to wasn't even
introduced.
Yeah. It was hinted at, but it didn't start rolling. And this movie is about 2 hours long, and I'm like halfway through, and we haven't gotten a taste of the meat yet. That was a bit difficult for me. So I must agree with you on that. Then there were some really, I would say, implausible things. First of all, if you're planning a heist, right? You are planning a heist while having an argument, and you're drawing some boxes on a piece of paper.
Yeah. Basically, I saw it as she was trying to convince herself and trying to convince him to convince her for them to do this.
Yeah, so that to me seemed implausible. Then there was the whole fact that, okay, so he is part of this plot or this heist because he's a van driver, like I mentioned. But why does he need to have a fake name if you're a driver for a courier company? That didn't make sense to me.
what I understood that part as in he had to have the fake name because he has a criminal record. His real name. So when they do the back check, they will see his real name as having a criminal record.
Okay.
The thing with it is his company, which they basically were being dishonest by telling the people who were hiring them that hey, everybody checked out and everybody's good
Right.
level because they had a shortage of drivers.
Right, because it basically fired everybody because of the lockdown.
And due to it being high-end merchandise, they were getting paid a lot.
Right.
So they did not want to lose that business.
Okay.
So they were also part of, let's say, the thievery.
Okay, well, now that you make that clear, to me, that went over my head. I knew that he hinted to the fact that he had done some bad things in the past, but I'm just like, why would your employers make you lie? But anyway, weird stuff could happen in lockdown.
But it also shows the cracks in the judicial system.
Okay.
Because he got a criminal record, which is saving someone else.
Okay.
Then he got in the fight tonight with the bikers.
Yeah.
And they barely gave you the plot to the story. So that shows the crack in the judicial system. Sometimes the good Samaritan end up being criminal. And something as that one moment in his life
ruin his
entire life.
Okay. Yeah.
So it had some life lessons in the show, but it was hard to hold on to.
Yeah.
It made you drift off at times, hoping that, okay, it's going to get better.
Right.
And we had a few, one or two laughable moments, but it wasn't enough.
I agree. The other thing that was, to me, implausible was the fact that the wife was working at this company, the jewelry company, for like 3 years, and no one knew that she was married. No. 3 years? And for me, that's shocking because I can't imagine being with someone for 3 years and your coworkers don't know that you have some...
That you exist.
Yeah. That you have someone in your life. So those were some of the challenges for me that made enjoying this movie a bit difficult.
And I got from it also, they show a bit of classism due to how they would see the employers. Most of them were well off.
Right.
And they basically, in a time of need, they basically just wanted to get rid of everyone. You know, so they did, and they were basically heartless about it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's funny, okay, they're gone, fire them, no problem. And they're talking like it was normal. And doing something like that in a time like this, losing your job
has a greater impact. Yeah.
Because it really does affect you. And later in the show, we get to figure out how badly it could affect someone. So we don't give away all the details. So
yeah. So
we had to sit through it, so you all should too. Give us your views.
Well, I will wrap up my take on this show with this. For all the big name actors, because there were a lot of cameos in the show, I expected a whole lot more. Perhaps given that this movie was filmed in 18 days during the lockdown in London, had a big influence on the outcome of the show. It just seemed as though the actors were bored during the pandemic and everybody wanted a paycheck. So they just said, okay, let's just do this. Yeah. As Joe mentioned before, I think that they could have gotten to the core of the film sooner. An hour in and we haven't gotten to the meat and potatoes. Something's wrong. And the whole fact that this was supposed to be a heist movie, it just didn't seem believable because there were lots of things. The planning wasn't well, and then at one point in time, she spilled her guts to somebody who wasn't even in on a heist with them. Like, on which planet? Well, I guess in TV land or movie land, that's what has happened.
The movie was 2 hours long, basically.
Yeah.
And the heist, the planning of the heist, the execution of the heist was probably about 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah. It wasn't substantial enough.
Yeah.
So if you really like heist movies, I would consider watching something like Ocean's 8 because Anne Hathaway is in that as well.
Sideman.
Right. If you are into movies that capture the reality of what lockdown is like, one of the ones that I enjoyed that was released last year is the Netflix TV series called Social Distance. That has a lot of big name actors as well. And I think that was better in capturing the essence of living through a pandemic while being entertaining. So those are your two options. We wouldn't suggest you watch this.
I read that very different.
Okay.
I think I went through it, so I think everybody should.
Or you just want to share the torture?
I'm curious to really hear what
other people think
of this movie. Just, okay. I'm saying, do not put aside anything that's really important to watch this movie.
Okay.
Watch this movie when you have free time.
Okay.
Really, a lot of free time.
All right. So we move to your pick, Joe.
My pick.
Yes, The Little Things.
Little Things.
Yeah, this one was written, directed, and produced by John Lee Hancock. For those who are unfamiliar with him, he is also known for two movies that I particularly enjoyed, The Highwaymen and The Blind Side. This one was released on 29th of January this year. So just a quick synopsis of the movie. The two main characters are Denzel Washington plays a burnt-out deputy sheriff called Joe Deacon, and he teams up with Rami Malek, who plays an LA Sheriff Department detective called Jim Baxter. And together they are pursuing a serial killer. In a nutshell, that's what it is. I like serial killer movies. I like cop shows. So this one intrigued me.
Yes, it started out very well. And if you all don't know who Jim Baxter is, what was his name?
Rami Malek.
Right. That's the guy from Mr. Robot.
Yes.
Yeah. So just to give you all a viewing of who that guy is, so you'll know exactly who it is. And everyone knows who's Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
If you don't,
well, talking about this Denzel Washington, as much as I appreciate a good serial killer show or a cop show, I tend to temper my expectations when it comes to Denzel. Because with me, he's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes he wows me. Like, I have really favorite movies by him. And then other times I'm like, no, Denzel, no.
I guess every actor have their moments.
Yeah.
Can't win them all. But, folks, this show was just below amazing. It has almost everything. I can compare it to, remember that show in the early 90s, 80s, somewhere there, in Seven, as well.
Yes, yeah, I remember it.
It's somewhere along that basis. So, this movie is just, it keeps you hooked, thinking, okay, what's next? What's going to happen next? And have you questioning, actually, well, it had me questioning, who is this killer? Because this killer he was brutal. He never stopped. And the movie had a lot of twists and turns, and it kept you wanting to know what is happening here. Why is he doing this? And the actual killer in the show is just in your face. Well, this is one of those movies we can't really spoil it for them.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it.
We can't spoil the end for you all, But that's as much as I can say. He's always in your face.
Okay.
He's like, wow.
So for me, things that I liked about the show, I think that the character development was very well done. Through normal conversation, we got a history of both of the main characters. Deke, which is Denzel's character, he was suspended, divorced, and had a triple bypass heart surgery in the last 6 months.
Over getting obsessed on basically the same case.
Yeah. So we'll talk about obsession in a minute, because I want to give that its own focus. And what was to me very pivotal, or almost eerie, I should say, was that Jimmy, who is Rami Malek's character, his life mirrored Deke's almost exactly. They both were cops, all were in enforcement. They both were married with 2 daughters. So that to me was like, wow, it really set up the dynamic between the two characters of mentor-mentee.
Yes, it was basically history repeating itself.
Right. So to me, it foreshadowed the core theme of the film, as you mentioned, which to me was obsession, because they were both obsessed in solving this crime to the detriment of their personal life.
That's another life lesson there, that balance is very important.
Yeah.
You don't really sacrifice the important things as family and loved ones. Don't mind that catching this heinous killer is very important because it's probably a danger to your family.
Right.
Because you have daughters and he's been killing young women, basically. So you feel like at this moment, you are trying to save your daughters from this guy.
Yeah, and to me, what can I say? It was very clear how Denzel felt about catching this killer. A couple of times, they showed Denzel driving in the vehicle, and you would see him observing young women, and he would have this pensive look on his face, and then eventually he will reluctantly smile. And for me, what I viewed or what I took away from that was the fact that, yes, he needed to catch these people because he understood that these women were just oblivious to the dangers around them. But he appreciated the fact that they wanted to live their life carefree, because who doesn't want to enjoy life?
Yes, especially at that young age.
Right. So that was very well done in terms of conveying the importance of catching this killer from Denzel's perspective. The thing that I wanted to mention around obsession, to tie back to what you were saying in terms of balance, was the fact that Denzel's character didn't even speak to his own daughters in a long while, it seemed.
They were very distant.
Yeah, extremely.
Very distant. He was even distant to his ex-wife.
Yeah.
But the strange thing is, they were distant, but in the show when they actually saw each other, you could see that this man was absolutely in love with this woman. And she loved him back.
Yeah.
But the balance between the work and home life caused something that might have been
great to die.
It can be repaired.
Yeah.
Probably if he retires from the job, actually give up on law enforcement.
But she moved on. She did? Yeah, she had somebody else because she mentioned that he was taking care of the yard, and he said, Denzel's character laughed it off, saying, "Oh, I was never really good at that." So she had moved on. But going back to balance and not allowing that to your work, because yes, many of us listening may not necessarily be involved in finding a serial killer, but balance is necessary for all of us, because to me that was portrayed by the simple fact that Denzel, he couldn't even sleep. He was haunted by these dead women. He would just randomly close his eyes and see these women. And that to me is never good. That you can't pause, put work aside and just enjoy life. Yeah.
They were his life.
Yes.
Those women were his life. But all in all, I think, folks, this is a good watch.
Don't wrap up just yet. I have a few more thoughts.
What's that? Talk to me.
So I know for sure that this was a good movie because, like I said, there was a mentor-mentee dynamic between Deacon, who is Denzel's character, and Jimmy, because there was a point in the show, I won't describe what was happening in the scene, but you can see how the obsession got to Jimmy too.
Yes.
He was like, wow. And he threw caution to the wind, and you can tell that the obsession got to the point where he was unraveling himself. So, again, people, while we recommend this, and it's very entertaining, find the life lessons, as Joe has pointed out, from the movie as well. Overall, like Joe mentioned, yeah, I'm for this show, and this is one of the times when Denzel didn't disappoint me. I actually liked the fact that he showed his gray hairs, because yes, we know Denzel is mature, but he showed his gray hairs and it was very suitable to his character. And I think it was way better than some of his other cop films. Definitely better than Out of Time and Deja Vu. And it was as enjoyable as Inside Man, because you mentioned Inside Man earlier. it was as enjoyable as that one.
It was a show you like. It was a character was made for him. I can't really see anyone else acting that particular role, at least as good as he did.
Okay.
Yeah, it was meant for him. The characters in the show, they suited their roles.
Yeah, they did. Even the serial killer, and I will let you guess who the serial killer is. Let us know. The other thing I want your input on Forever Family is what's with the cross? Because there's a cross that is shown in the movie. I want to know. Explain. Help me understand. What's with the cross? That's not a spoiler. Joe, don't rub your head. That's not a spoiler. Maybe I just don't understand it, but yeah, because maybe you understand it. I don't understand it. So I want to know. Let us know on Instagram at Journey to Forever TT. Somebody help me, please. Joe's not going to tell me.
Because really and truly, I just saw the cross as...
But don't spoil it. Let them tell us.
All right, I'll let you all tell us.
All right, babe. We promised the people the other movie.
One thing, let's add something. How would you rate your movie?
I would rate Lockdown at probably 5.
Yeah, I'll give it a 5. With a push. Yeah, I'll give it a 5. 5 it is.
How about your movie, The Little Things?
I'll give it a 7.5.
I was not gonna say that. 7.5. I think that was great.
Yeah, 7.5. For one of the first movies for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it deserved it.
Right.
Have some shortcomings, but I'll overlook that. That's why that is 7.
Yeah, agreed. Because there are things that I have questions about, like I mentioned. I'm not going to spoil it. If we could get into the conversation on Instagram and detail it once you all watch it. But I liked it.
Yes, it was lovely.
So, another movie. We spoke about the movies. Let's talk about the food now, man.
Basically, a nice date night dinner, basically. Leftover cheese pizza.
Hey. If you listen to us on season 1, you know that our love for pizza is at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle level. So, ain't no stale pizza, ain't no leftovers are just as good as the first time.
Yes, it was. It was great. And we can even give a plug. Joe's Pizza, Joe's plain cheese pizza, Joe's in Marvel. They have the greatest plain cheese pizza. It's lovely.
But what I like about this particular date idea is the fact that you could have anything. You know, typically if you go to the movies here, you're kind of limited in terms of your options.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So I like the fact that you're watching a movie in the safety of your home. You don't have to line up and wait.
You don't have to wear a mask.
Exactly. And you can eat as much or as little as you wish.
Whatever you wish.
So, but I would admit there are times when I do miss the chicken tenders from that place where we are accustomed going and watching movies, right?
Well, next time we'll have to organize to have our own chicken tenders.
In the air fryer.
Yes, and I'm sure it's going to be better from that place.
Yes, I know. For sure.
You know, we just screw it down.
Yeah.
Right.
So, listeners, we promise you that our podcast is all about providing you with the fuel to keep your relationship going. So in this particular segment, we're going to check our fuel gauge, and that segment is called
What Filled Your Love Tank?
Yes, What Filled Your Love Tank? So, Joe, besides the cheese pizza, what filled your love tank?
What filled my love tank? Folks, I have been home for a couple weeks on vacation, and my love tank was filled by Flo being so appreciative when she gets back home from work, and I have cooked and she eats, and she's very appreciative of that, of me doing these little things, and I saw it as no biggie, as something I should do, seeing that I'm home. Fellas, that's how I feel. If you're at home and you can help, there's no such thing as woman's work or man's work. If you love a lady, you do something to help her out and make her happy. So yeah, that filled my love tank, having her appreciation of me cooking.
Listen, I really did appreciate it. But you know what? What I really enjoyed was you allowing me to be silly. Like I really, really enjoyed that impromptu dance session that morning before I went to work.
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Guys, we just had fun. And I like the fact that you don't ever think that I'm crazy for just dancing with no music. I might be humming a song off key or the tune, but we have fun nevertheless. But actually, yeah, one day we did put on some music, didn't we? Yeah.
And was that another humming session?
No, and we put on
In the kitchen?
Yeah, R&B.
Yeah.
We put on some old school R&B at one point in time, and Cisco was playing.
Yes,
And
in the kitchen.
yeah,
Yeah, so that was it. That was nice, yeah.
that was.
Great time for those 2 weeks that was in vacation.
So our love tanks are definitely filled.
Yeah.
So as we close out today's episode, we want to encourage you to try this date idea. And as our gift to you, we have compiled our 2021 movie picks in a PDF document. If you're interested in getting a copy of this, then please check the link in our bio on our Instagram page. That is at Journey to Forever TT for your free download. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever app you're listening to this episode. If you happen to be listening on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate if you leave us a 5-star review. Until next week, remember that love is a journey, but it's worth it too. Enjoy the ride with Flo and Joe.